Welcome back to Season 4 of Comic Book Nation, your one-stop spot for all things geek culture and the big representative of Comicbook.com. I'm your host, Kofi Outlaw. And with me today are my co-hosts, Janelle Wheeler.
Hello, everybody.
And Matthew Aguilar.
What up?
And guys, like I said, we're your one-stop spot for all things geek culture, but this week we weren't the only ones. There was also another big stop where you could go for big things geek culture, and that was CinemaCon 2022. So we are going to recap CinemaCon and talk about all the things we want to talk about and are excited for. Plus, we are going to go through and rank our villain picks. The Batman 2 has been announced, so now we are going to give you guys our pick for the villain of that movie because it's a hot topic out there, and we got some stuff to say. Plus, we got to talk about the latest episodes of both Moon Knight and the Halo TV series, which streams on the excellent Paramount Plus, along with us, Comic Book Nation. So subscribe to us on all your podcast platforms and stream us on Paramount Plus. But all right, like I said, we got a lot to do, so we are wasting no time. Let's get to it.
Let's get.
Yeah, I got my tabs.
God.
Let's get my tabs organized.
At least you didn't do like the...
See, I need things like that.
We were talking Bad Boy, man.
I mean, we got, Matt's on a young jock kick today. I don't know what's happening on this Friday. It's been a weird week, so
I love Kofi's
yeah.
expression.
I know, he's so over it with me.
No, I'm not over it. I just have a dad face and I have to keep moving through a lot of stuff all the time.
Face.
Like all the time, yeah. I can't get. I have to stay nonplussed through a lot these days.
That's great.
Yeah, but all right. Daddy, let Daddy take you to CinemaCon. All right, here we go. So, CinemaCon 2022. We're just going to stop by because all of us were here, so we didn't get to see a lot of this, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there on Comicbook.com right now. On the DC side, we got, like we said, the announcement that the Batman 2 is happening. Everybody is shocked.
We should do our victory lap around here because we were talking about Batman not much longer ago.
Oh yeah, I mean, last week we were just rewatching and talking about how excited
great
we were and how
I'm
great
not
it
saying
is.
that's
Yeah.
the reason why. I'm just saying.
No, I mean the rest of the world apparently felt, kind of, sort of the same way, and so here we are with the Batman 2 coming. But we are gonna put a pin in that because we are gonna talk about what villains we each want to see in this, and we're gonna try to rank them as our picks. And that's later in the show, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But we got to see the rest of the DC slate. They showed off things from the things we're not going to get this year, like The Flash, Aquaman. We got to see some things from Shazam and Black Adam, which are both arriving this year. And it sounded like all that stuff is pretty on track to be pretty fun, look pretty good. Everybody's excited.
Yeah.
So that was that. Moving on to, so that was Warner Brothers, DC, that's kind of what hit for us over there.
Yeah.
The other, moving on to Disney, the big thing that we got to see at Disney was finally Avatar 2, which is called Avatar: The Way of Water, because apparently we did not know the way water worked before James Cameron's about to tell us the way of water. But people got to see the first footage of Avatar 2. We aren't one of them. But people got the 3D glasses, and they got to see it. And apparently, James Cameron's looking pretty sweet. I mean, it's been a forever wait. We were like 4 timelines ago when Avatar came out, and yeah, but apparently, Cameron did it again.
I just don't care.
I was honestly surprised.
I don't care about it yet, but once they give me the
correct.
3D glasses again, I think I will care. Because
No, I just don't care, period. I didn't love the first one. I didn't care about the first one.
All right, there you go. Matt says, die Pandora. There you go.
It was okay.
I didn't say die Pandora.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just messing with you. But, the first Avatar was crazy good with the 3D technology. It just
the first
looked
of its
incredible.
kind, yeah.
And it still looks better than 90% of the things people tried to pass off as 3D since then. So I'm still good, and I'm kind of excited. From what I'm hearing, people are saying this is going to be legit. So
Yeah.
the thing I'm most concerned for is Aquaman.
Me too.
Yeah, Avatar comes out at the end of the year, then we get Aquaman early next year, and
Yeah.
James Wan supposedly is making new underwater technology for Aquaman, but what does that mean in the James Cameron world? I don't know.
I honestly do not know, but that's a really good point.
It's not the only thing I'm worried about Aquaman, but
I know, but
we'll
there's a
just,
lot.
We'll leave that there. We'll leave that there.
And Flash, there's
Keep
a
watching
lot
your
going
seabed,
on.
Aquaman. Keep watching your
Yeah.
seabed, and let's move on. So, Avatar 2 is coming. But the other thing we got to see from the Disney side, what is that?
I'm waiting to get to the best thing.
Oh, the big thing we got to, why don't you go ahead?
What?
No, go ahead. You're really
I thought
excited.
that's how we were going to launch.
I feel like you should go.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Rescue Rangers.
There you go.
Was so ridiculously fun. How is that not fun? Like when that thing was announced and the cast announced, it was great. And then we saw like footage, and you see the voices, or you hear the voices, sorry, and you see like the 3D, 2D split and the Roger Rabbit vibes. Dude, I'm so pumped for that. That like stole the whole CinemaCon for me.
Yeah, and I mean, there you go. There you go. Yes, guys. We're also getting El Muerto. People in the comments are shouting out El Muerto. In WTF news, yes, Disney is developing a Marvel character El Muerto with Bad Bunny.
That's right, yeah, Bad Bunny.
That's
Bad
really
Bunny,
interesting.
which, Bad Bunny, man, like, I just want to... I have not been doing this reality thing right. Like, Bad Bunny is just shaping a reality that
Kill it, man.
Like, I just need to be a part of. He just does whatever.
Yeah,
he lives out his dreams.
WrestleMania.
Just wall to wall, live out my dreams. I'm a music star. I'm a wrestler. Now I'm going to be a Marvel hero.
And by the way, he did great. Like, he killed it too. It wasn't like when people throw out the first pitch of a game and it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, maybe we should have done that one. Like, no, he went into the ring and killed it, and he came back. Like, it's awesome, man.
So, El Muerto is a luchador-themed Marvel hero. If you don't know anything about him, nobody does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Nobody does.
Okay.
He has like 2 or 3 appearances in comics.
But
that's
in Marvel?
Yeah.
Why did they choose?
Well, it's kind of like a blank slate. You can let him kind of paint his canvas on
I mean,
it.
I love
It's
that.
basically going to be, who's El Muerto? It's Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny the movie.
Yeah, Bad Bunny the movie with Marvel. Marvel got in the Bad Bunny business and
Which I'm
said,
cool with, man.
so great.
Do your thing.
don't even strain it. We got a guy
so
who's a
great.
wrestler. You want to be a superhero? You want to be a wrestler? All right.
Yeah.
You're going to do the soundtrack? Awesome. Here we go.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
here we go.
man, it's gonna be.
So El Muerto, thanks for that reminder. Somebody comic book Twitch thing says El Muerto is so deadly he killed his own Wikipedia page. All right,
God, that's brilliant.
Rescue Rangers, El Muerto. We also got to see, or not we, the collective we, Universal we,
we're
got to see new footage from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Of course, we weren't at CinemaCon, but we had an agent get out there, and we got a little screening of it for ourselves, and we sent someone to check that out. Janelle Wheeler.
They were like, hey, who of you guys can make this? And I was the first person. I was like, I'm there. And everybody else was like, I have a life. And I'm like, no, I can drop everything to go see this. So I did that, and it was amazing. Obviously, like, I'm not going to spoil anything because I don't feel we're so close. Like,
no.
Giving away anything is just cruel at this point. But I can say that the visuals are absolutely stunning. Like, it felt so good to see them on the big screen because we've seen a lot of that, like that purple kind of solar-y area where he and America are running around. And like on my phone or PC, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. And seeing that specifically on the big screen was beautiful. It was gorgeous. I will say it was a little more violent than I expected in some battle scenes, more than one. And I am just like loving Strange's vibe in this. Like, he is so funny with Wong. Like, they're great. And seeing these characters, and like obviously there's going to be so much crossover from, you know, all of the other films and the MCU, and there is mention of like what happened in Spider-Man, like quick.
Yeah.
And that's great. Like, it just feels like it ties together really good. I'm probably the worst person to judge this though because I'm obsessed with Strange.
You're a Strange stan.
Yeah, I am. But I will say that my biggest complaint in like the movie posters was that they were giving more attention to like Wanda or any of these like other characters, and it did not bug me at all. Like, the film is still Doctor Strange, but you get so many appearances too.
So how was Tom Cruise?
He was great.
Just messing with you. We're just messing with you.
He's so good.
We're just messing with you.
Yeah. El Muerto was Bad Bunny killed it.
One comment from the one question from the comments is, does it feel like horror?
No, it didn't feel like horror to me yet.
Okay.
But it felt a little bit more like aggressive.
Okay. All right.
And interesting, but it didn't get nightmarish yet or anything like that.
She said with a wink. All right, there we go. So that is our inside scoop on what we saw from Doctor Strange. By this time next week, we will, I know some of us will have seen it. Yeah, seen it. So you will find a variant of us here next week that can talk to you about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So stay tuned for all that. This is not the time to bail out of this show. So that's what was Disney. Sony, Matt, you're also excited about one thing from Sony in particular.
Ghostbusters sequel, but my thing is that we still don't know. I've seen conflicting reports. I've seen some that say it's a sequel to Afterlife, and a bunch that said it was just, they don't know what it is, but it's just a sequel to Ghostbusters. I'm hoping, I really enjoyed Afterlife, so I'm hoping we get that cast back. You know, we don't have to bring everybody back, obviously, but can we bring the core group back of this new generation, because that was part of the fun of it. So I hope we continue that storyline. I really enjoyed that movie a lot, and I'm not a huge Ghostbusters stan, so that came from someone kind of mainstream.
Yeah, other things that Sony did was announce that Venom 3 is going into production, so we're getting
I'm excited about
and
this.
El Muerto, we should clarify, El Muerto is a Sony production. It's not a Marvel Studios production.
Yeah.
The other big thing that's coming is Across the Spider-Verse, which we saw test footage from. It's Across the Spider-Verse, which we have on Comicbook.com Marvel, and it's pretty crazy. It has Spider-Gwen fighting a vulture, or a crazy kind of comedic version of the vulture that's kind of like Da Vinci Italian.
That's great.
And she gets an assistant from Spider-Man 2099, Oscar Isaac everywhere. And, we get introduced to Jessica Drew, Issa Rae's Jessica Drew in the scene. So it's pretty crazy. And the producers have said some crazy things about how many universes we'll see. There's going to be 6 of them. There's going to be 240 characters in this. I just wrote an article before we just got in here saying Chris Miller had to clarify that, saying he's talking about everybody, background characters, all that stuff. Because we're going to all these dimensions. The first film, I think he said, had 40 or 50 characters altogether, talking background characters and all that stuff for Brooklyn and the different places they went. So we're not going to get 240 unique characters you've got to keep track of. We're just going to get, there's going to be multiple universes that have to be populated, and so it's a crazy workload, and in different styles, no less.
Issa Rae's Jessica Drew is going to be amazing.
Oh yeah, I have complete faith. I mean, she's pregnant, she's pregnant in this. She's 5 months pregnant, in this scene, so it's going to be crazy. There's going to be some jokes in there.
Look, if core MCU could get, they've already in just a little bit have knocked that character so far out of the park. I'm really hoping the rest delivers, obviously, but just use this as a template, please.
Yeah.
MCU.
And as far as, the Flash, people are asking about the Flash movie. No, it's still happening. They showed off stuff from it. Keaton's going to be de-aged. There's a bunch of stuff going on there that they showed from that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, still in the works. But that's Sony. Moving right along, Universal. Yeah, the trailer for Jurassic World Dominion dropped. Universal dropped that kind of a final trailer for that movie. And man, I forgot to put the link in here, sorry, but it is crazy. It is crazy good. So if we don't have that here, sorry about that, but you guys should go and check that out, because I don't think my hype was at all that big for this movie.
Yeah, same.
Until this trailer, and then I was like, okay, well,
shocking.
Yeah, this looks amazing.
Yeah.
Colin Trevorrow has done it. And the visuals look real polished and amazing in this. And just the premise of the dinosaurs being out in the world, them trying to solve these issues, and how the original cast is going to kind of come into it. It all looks like it comes together and might be one of the best of the series. So I am real hyped for Jurassic World Dominion. And now back home, back full circle around the home to the lovely Paramount, where we got the announcement. There's a lot happening on Paramount. We got all kinds of Star Trek good stuff happening, but on the movie side, for CinemaCon, we got the name, the title for Mission Impossible 7, which will be Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Oh, there I am, laid on the switch, but there we are on the crazy eyes. Dead Reckoning, Part 1. But so we're going to get Mission Impossible.
I love it.
And we got that. And we're also going to get A Quiet Place Day 1, which will be the next A Quiet Place movie, but will be a prequel. And if you saw A Quiet Place 2, I'm not mad at this, because that opening sequence of them, the first day that everything landed and everything went ballistic, was truly I love A Quiet Place 2, but the most edge of your seat, kind of freaky part
shocking.
of that was
I was surprised that I really loved
that opening. And so seeing Day 1 and just the scramble of people trying to deal with that, I like what they're doing with this franchise. They're finding smart ways to keep this going. And it's crazy that this whole thing is not passed a whole bunch of time, this whole franchise. But anyway, so I'm looking forward to that, because that'll be just filled with nuts kind of stuff of people trying to survive. And you see what they can do expanding the cast to people like Cillian Murphy, so that's gonna be great. All right, so that was CinemaCon. Did we hit anything? Did we miss anything you guys were really kind of excited for out there.
I mean, Chad is asking, so is the Flash movie not happening? No, it's still happening.
Yeah,
They're still leaning into it, but it's 2023.
Yeah, it's 2023. I mean, it got delayed, and they're still heavily leaning into this. I mean, is it looking good for it? I don't know. That's a debate we can have elsewhere. But, All right, so moving on from CinemaCon, we are going to move into TV. So that was movies. Let's talk about TV. So TV this week. We've been following the Halo series, which we have universally been praising, and not just because we get checks from Paramount, because it's actually been a really good series. And this latest episode, episode 6, picked up with the aftermath of the big battle we kind of broke down last episode. And this was very much a development episode. It was just kind of moving the pieces around after this big event that happened and setting up the final arc of the series. So we're not going to get too much into it. There wasn't any big headlines that we need to hear. I'm just here to say, yeah, Halo's awesome. I'm still behind this series. This is episode 6. We got 9 total in season 1, and so yeah. So, I mean, I'm very much liking the series, and this was a very performance-heavy episode. Yeah. And again, a great cast and just good stuff happening on this sci-fi show.
With Chief, where he sticks Halsey.
In
the room.
Oh my god,
that scene is tense.
So great.
And it's so good. Oh my god, like that scene stood out for me.
Yeah.
From everything. It was a great episode. But yeah, I agree. A lot of this is the stuff that we talk about though that is so important because these are the episodes that do all the work.
Right.
And then we get 2 episodes from now or whatever a giant fight.
Yeah, the payoff.
But I will care about the fight because of stuff like this. It's so good.
So yeah, Halo, Paramount Plus every week. Check that out. I mean, it's crazy though. Like Paramount Plus had me this week. I was watching Star Trek Picard, Halo, The Offer. Yeah. Like I was like, man, I can't get out of here. 1883, I'm still liking. Like, man.
The Grammys.
Guys, like what other streaming service is also going to let you watch live TV at the same time? Is Disney going to let you watch live stuff?
And iCarly.
And iCarly. Is Disney going to let you watch live stuff? Does Netflix have live anything? No.
Do they?
You want to keep paying? You want to keep playing Hulu extra money for live? Or you can get Paramount Plus. Stream the NFL, the Grammys,
oh my God.
all kinds of great stuff.
I did watch the Grammys. I did.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it anywhere except for.
All right. And tons of amount of programming. All right, so Comic Book Nation streaming on Paramount Plus. What isn't streaming on Paramount Plus is Moon Knight. So let's talk about Moon Knight's latest ep. This is the one we're going to dig into a little bit. Wow. About what?
They mentioned Bushman.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, you were totally right.
Yeah, Matt was right. My theory went down the tubes that Jake Lockley would be the one who was playing the Bushman role in this. This episode did a tricky thing. It very much went inside, literally and figuratively, of Mark Spector, but it was also a lot of world building for the future of Moon Knight in several key ways. We heard the name Bushman finally, as Mark's kind of commanding officer from the military and his whole kind of getting discharged because he was nuts and having to work for Bushman and how that all went down. And we saw a very violent kind of bloody origin of how he became Moon Knight.
Yeah.
We still haven't met Bushman, obviously. Probably hasn't been cast yet. So that's coming later, or that'll be kind of the future in the MCU. But we also got this really intense kind of character study episode that was really dark, and man, Oscar Isaac,
He nailed it.
Yeah, he is carrying this show on his back like something crazy good. And just the interaction of him just acting with himself and just this deep, powerful interaction between Mark and Steven and everything that they have to go through their memories. And we hate this in comic books, but I kind of love it in these episodes, like when WandaVision did it. And now this, Moon Knight has done it when they go back through the characters' backstory. Origin. And
but this was so, I agree with you. And I also, we talked about it before, right? Where they dip into this mental plane and you're not sure. Like some of that stuff can feel very like we're not moving the story forward. I didn't feel like that at all in this whole episode. They did such a good job. I mean, just the stair scene. When he keeps going up the stairs, Steven keeps moving up, and he's like, no, don't go there. And it's like another chapter. It's another chapter. Like he keeps shutting doors. The way they did this was fantastic. That was all hard for me to watch sometimes.
Oh, yeah, it was. And this was one of the best episodes about dealing with trauma, mental illness, abuse, things like that. Just the way they put together the memories and did all of that. It was really crazy. It was really
heartbreaking.
And as you rewatch it, there's so many crazy details in there. when they go to the memory, and we'll talk about his brother, but like when they go to the memory of the day Randall died, like he's sitting there and they're both drawing before they run off to the cave, and he's drawing a fish that only has one fin, and they keep making fun of him because he draws fish that only have one fin.
Yeah.
And that's like why the fish was so important to him in the first episode. And it's just like, there's so much that when you rewatch this series, it is very rewarding when you begin to know now. And like, I would love to go back and watch the first episode. I haven't yet, but now that you see the origin of like how Steven took over.
Yeah.
From the
well, that's what I loved most was that how just the subtle flip of why Steven, because you always assume that Mark is the defender personality or that Jake is the defender personality. But it's not. And the way the show does it is really interesting that Steven is actually the defender personality because of the fearless thing, right?
Yep.
Like that's why, okay, I have to retreat into him. He's my defender, but not in your typical way you would associate a defender of somebody. I thought that was just very powerful. Like that whole scene was very powerful. So
I mean, and just again, it's Oscar Isaac acting with himself, but the thing where he tells him like it's not your fault, you were a kid, like,
man.
Like you just that gets to you really hard, like and so Moon Knight, and I want to hammer in, I just kind of want to focus in on this because this episode, I think, is the core of what this Moon Knight series is really about. It's not really about getting the hero on some big adventure and stopping the bad guy. Of course, we're going to do that in the obligatory episode 6 fight, whatever. But it was an origin story in the sense that there was a hero that was already has his powers, but really doesn't have his identity quite literally figured out. And so this is him kind of getting it together and becoming the Moon Knight we'll see going forward. And so, like, this was really kind of the climax of that journey. I mean, not yet, because, I mean, there's so much we got to do in this last episode. Because, spoilers, some real heavy stuff happens at the end of this
Which I'm amazed they held that much.
Yeah.
I mean, we still haven't, we still don't have Jake. Like, to save all of that for your... Oh man, I don't know. That's going to be hard.
Yeah, I mean, like, we are way down, because I wrote an article called, Will Moon Knight's finale deliver? Because we are way, way, way down.
Yeah.
Like, I know you have to start down with the hero a little bit when you're trying to get to the finale, but we are literally and figuratively way down.
Like, he's underground.
Yeah, everybody's dead. Like, Mark is dead, Steven's dead, like, they're both dead.
Double dead.
They're double dead, They're mentally dead and they're physically dead, and we have to get both of them out of mental death. Get out of the afterlife. Get back to the physical world.
Get Khonshu back, by the way.
Get Khonshu back. Just so you have your powers back. Just so we can
episode.
have this ending fight. So don't think about Jake. I think that Jake is gonna be like the teaser at the end of this. Like Moon Knight's gonna be like, well, that's good. We defeated the bad guy, and I've got it all together. Yeah. And there's just gonna be a guy in the mirror, like, man.
See, I know, but that bums me out.
You guys don't think that Jake was in the final part of this episode where he's talking to the therapist?
No, the theory, yes, there's that. I mean, there's theories that you've been seeing Jake all along, and if you go back and watch specific parts, I mean, from the very first episode, the guy who asked the girl out on a date, obviously, but like we said, there was a one when they go into the tomb and there's a guy in the mirror that one time that everybody assumes is Mark, but it's been just it's not.
Here's my thing, if they do that, I will be annoyed. Because the whole point, my whole thing was, by the end of this show, I want him to be
fully developed.
Fully just developed when it comes to his personalities and like giving us a platform to then move forward, right, into like more, to me, probably more interesting territory and mixing with the general MCU. If we're holding out like one huge aspect of his personality, I will feel like, really cut some other stuff and make room for that, because I don't want another movie like for him to be involved and him still trying to figure that out. Like, I want to see him at a certain point. So I will be a little bummed in that respect if they go, no, we're holding that for later. I'm like,
I think you're going to have to be bummed because I don't think there's enough time in this episode.
There's
not.
To do it right.
Yeah,
I don't think there is.
Jake,
but if they do it that way, where it was, hey, he's been here all along, and then they reveal something that is like, you've been seeing him, here's where he is. Okay, I'd be okay with that, because again, we're still, by the end of the show, doing what I want them to do.
And remember, I said this last week too, I think in this MCU structure, it's going to be different. Like you said, Steven's like the good side, the protector, the good thing. I think Jake's going to be the dark side, like the one, the beast on the leash, and Mark is the one in the middle. And so I think going forward, it's going to be Moon Knight, but Moon Knight comes with the danger of freaking
but that's
out and doing
interesting to
crazy
me,
stuff.
and that's how I want him to leave here. I don't want us to then have to do another thing with him to get there.
No,
so
I don't
that's
think.
my thing.
I don't think there's going to be a whole like Jake like drama. I think Jake is going to be pretty established as being
what I want.
Dark Moon Knight, and when Jake comes out, like everybody should be scared of Moon Knight.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
that's how I would be
Yeah,
happy.
it's going to be kind of the horror guy. But all right, so that's Moon Knight. We're all skeptical about this finale, but good luck, Marvel, because this has been a good series so far.
I hope we're like come back and we're like, hey, they killed it.
So do I. I mean, that's my hope. Obviously, I don't want this to go badly.
I believe.
After all this work that Oscar Isaac's put in, are you kidding me?
I believe.
All right, so just quick things before we go to break. So Randall, we don't see Randall's death, but I'm kind of on the fence. But there is this weird suggestion in the memory that Khonshu could have been involved with this whole act because as they go into the cave, they find the bird bones, and that's Khonshu. And there is this kind of suggestion that Steven starts to put together that, Khonshu's been messing with you or like grooming you for a long time.
Yeah.
And, like, manipulating.
Yeah, Steven even kind of says like he's just been using you.
Yeah.
Like he's very much adamant that that would be an interesting twist.
Wow.
And I think so because we know that in the comics, and people have been freaking out already, Randall is his brother, but becomes this very kind of mastermind villain who kind of hangs back in the shadows for a lot of Mark's life. And, they had a much different origin. They were both mercenaries until they fell out with each other. But, that he comes back into his life eventually, and he even thinks he's going to become like the next avatar of Khonshu. Becomes this good thing called Shadow Knight, and this whole thing. There's a Hatchet Man thing, but we don't have to get into all of that. But,
Comics.
Yeah, so there's speculation that, if Khonshu has been manipulating this and playing with this, maybe his brother isn't really dead or resurrected, and that would be kind of the Shadow Knight version of this in the MCU. Which zombie Moon Knight, Shadow Knight, is a soul resurrected. I mean, it's not too crazy from where we are currently.
Yeah.
So that's on the table.
I'm fine with Khonshu being involved in that, but I don't think the brother should come back because that's literally what shaped.
Yeah, I mean, that's my question.
Yeah,
I agree.
That is what
You think the emotional payoff of killing him is better?
Yes.
I think, the way they did it, the way I actually feel like if you mess with that, you're just screwing up a good thing.
Yeah.
I feel like
Gets too
impactful
soap opera.
thing. Yeah.
And also, Shadow Knight is a cool concept. I think here's the thing. I think Shadow Knight works better as Jake's avatar. If you're going to keep doing things, you're going to lean into the darkness aspect of him, and everyone else already has one. Give him that. Let that concept and cool design be him, and then just let it be. I don't need you to bring back. I don't know. I think that messes with it. And also, I just find the stuff that's currently being done with the Second Fist and all that stuff way more interesting and expansive to that than doing, hey, let's bring him back. Because it can be very one note.
Yeah.
And, so I don't know. I like
I don't
that
think
better.
I don't think Shadow Knight ever was like a concept that jumped off so.
Not like they wanted it to.
No, I like Hunter's Moon is a better character, like you said. So, yeah, we can skip all that. But I'm interested to see what they do with Bushman. And all right, Moon Knight. We gotta see how this all comes together. Some people said the hippo. They love the hippo character, but they didn't like her having an English accent. Just remember, this is kind of Mark's Steven's interpretation of all this.
That's why they're in an asylum.
Yeah.
And
so,
they're even hey, this is a first. It's very tailored to them.
So
That's true.
let's
That's
not
a
get
good
too
point.
bogged down and all that.
That's a good point.
All right, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're having it out. We are going to try to help the next Batman movie come correct with the right villain, and we have each picked 3 villains that we have ranked as our top picks, and we are going to present them to you guys and see which one of us gets your approval the most, because the internet is good for that, right? All right, so we're going to take a break. This is Comic Book Nation. Come on back with us. Welcome back to Comic Book Nation, your one-stop spot for all things geek culture. We just broke down what happened at CinemaCon with all the big movies coming up and what happened in Geek TV this week with Moon Knight and Halo. Now we are going to take on our main topic of this episode, which is The Batman 2. Bum, bum, bum. So The Batman's getting a sequel, but the big question that a lot of DC fans have is who should be the villain of this next Batman movie, or villains, if you want to go that route. I've been kind of liking just having one central villain, but I mean, this one, the first one admittedly had like technically 3 to 4.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, there was Penguin,
Catwoman,
Catwoman,
Falcone, yeah.
But you can do that in the Batman world.
Yeah, exactly, because it's a whole world now. So, with that in mind, we are going to go around and we'll each go, I think we'll go from, really, do we have to do it how we have it written out here? I don't know.
No, they were just in here.
Okay, so.
However you want to do it.
We'll each go from our third picks and then we'll work up to number 1.
Oh, third. Okay, cool.
So I'm going to go first, and my third pick was, I think on the finish sheet, I remember this backwards than what I have in here. So I think I said, I think Peter has it down as Peacekeeper. Is Peacekeeper my third pick? I believe so.
I totally submitted mine backwards too.
Oh,
my
mine
God.
are so wrong.
Oh boy.
Actually, mine are like stacked in the wrong order.
Oh my
Poor
God.
thing. I'm so sorry.
All right, so I'm going to go with Peacekeeper. So my first pick is Peacekeeper for the Batman villain. If you do not know, that's okay, because Peacekeeper was a recent addition to the Batman lore with James Tynion, who did, what was that called? Fear State, the Fear State event, which should be out in trade right now, so you can check out Fear State. But basically what happened in Fear State was there was this event at Arkham called A-Day where somebody Joker gassed all of Arkham Asylum, and, you know, it sent Gotham into a new state of chaos and just kind of paranoia. And it allowed this new industrialist named Simon Saint to come in, and he brought what was called the Peacekeeper Initiative, which was a whole, you know, privately owned, you know, technologically advanced police system with its own tech-boosted cyber cops called Peacekeepers. And he basically locked Gotham down as a police state with drones and these, you know, cyber cops and all of that stuff. So, why do I think this is a great pick, excuse me, for the Batman 2? Well, my picks, as you're going to find out, come from the logic point of seeing where we ended in the Batman and what kind of themes Matt Reeves was looking at in that film, and seeing how do we best take those forward into a sequel. So, Gotham City is trashed and flooded. It's become like virtually a no man's land. It's cut off. It's on its own. And my feeling is, in that kind of literal state of existence, this would be a great way to introduce the concept of a very wealthy industrialist coming and saying, no, this is what happens with cities right now. I can build a better city, you know, through this means of law and order, and starts to make these kind of cops, and you get, you know, these RoboCop type guy who's Peacekeeper 1, who has his own story. Matt Reeves is obviously not going full comic book, but this Batman does use a lot of gadgets in this. There is a lot of technology in the Batman when you step back and begin looking at the case and how they investigate it. So technology is not off the table. It's just got to be fitted for this kind of universe. But it's there. Also, by the time this movie comes out, I think we'll have a lot to talk about just, you know, what kind of world we're living in, where these kind of very wealthy industrialists just kind of come in and just say, well, I'm taking control of this aspect of society, law and order, and I'm going to make it the way I want it, and this is the way we should do things.
I wonder what he's
timely, right?
In the chat, Chris says, so Elon Musk is going to be the villain.
Exactly, and that, yes, and I want that version of Simon Saint. I want to take the Simon Saint character and tweak them so everybody knows what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, yes, and, you know, obviously this all goes bad for Simon Saint, and there's a lot of room to do what the Batman did, because Scarecrow is a very vital part of Fear State and helping Simon Saint do this stuff before it all goes sideways. And I think this would be great for the Batman to kind of examine, you know, what is law and order, you know, these modern ideas of people privatizing and controlling things and saying, you know, this is what Gotham needs. It sets up an antagonist that, in a tweaked story, Batman has to fight, you know, peacekeepers and avoid and become a, you know, not just a vigilante, but a fugitive in his own city. And Bruce Wayne has to get out and do something and begin to question, you know, what, if this is what a guy's doing with his wealth and influence and stuff, what should I be doing to kind of, you know, counter this?
Right.
So there's
I
a Bruce
love
Wayne
that.
story here. and it's a villain nobody's seen in live action
so
ever.
cool.
So that's my pick for the Batman. Man, I sounded like I just argued for a number 1, but
Yeah, I know.
It really did.
but that's just a number.
My
That was a
pick
number
is going to
3.
be very
done.
short comparatively, but I
Well
will
done.
say you've kind of sold me on Peacekeeper because, like, I'm new to reading the comics with Peacekeeper.
Yeah.
I don't know the backstory at all. I just kind of popped right in, and I'm like, oh, this is just how it is right
Yeah.
now, and I love that story. So
Yeah.
now I'm totally on it, and I'm going to replace mine with Peacekeeper.
And I would steal some future state stuff like Dark Detective, stuff like that, and like make that version of Batman and kind of throw them out.
Because this world fits so well with the kind of retrograde stuff that Dark Detective dips into. It would feel right at home in the Batman.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
So,
I love that pick. It's a great
All right.
pick.
Am
Janelle.
I next? Okay, so my third pick, which is completely out of order, I'm so sorry, Peter, is actually, I did some deep diving on Batman characters because, as you guys know, I am a 2020 comic book reader. I started doing all of the deep dives of comic book reading in 2020, so I had a lot of makeup work to get to know a lot of these villains. And I obviously know all of the ones that have already been featured in every movie. And it's easy for me to say Penguin and the Riddler and Joker and all of that. But I started kind of checking out lists online. I'm like, who are the best? And one that really spoke to me was Hush. I was very intrigued by the fact that this villain knows the identity of Bruce Wayne. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. And I don't know the super dark history and all of the bells and whistles, but I do know that that makes for a compelling story already. The fact that in this past movie, Batman was freaked out that the Riddler knew who he was the whole time. Well, what if now someone actually does, and it's someone that you knew from childhood? And obviously, the sewing of the skin, the surgical aspect is very creepy and weird. And I love the bandage wrap. I think it's really creepy, and that's obviously that's the iteration I would like. You guys were talking to me earlier about kind of this character's backstory and how he can take Catwoman's heart and Batman's face, and I think that's a little much, but if you kind of simplify it down and make it consumable in this world, I think it could be kind of freaky. He kind of freaks me out for sure.
In the comics, some people said, would it be too close to the Riddler story, the first film? No, because if you know anything like the Hush storyline, the key of it is Riddler was messing with you, and there was a big fake out making you feel like you might know Bruce Wayne, but he doesn't. Hush does know Bruce Wayne.
Their childhood.
And so the things that he does are very personal.
Yeah.
And very messing with Bruce Wayne specifically.
Yeah.
Which is what knocks Batman kind of off balance, is that this is somebody coming at Bruce Wayne and Batman at once.
Ooh,
So
that
it's
gives me
different.
chills. That's very, very creepy.
Matt, you now have to give us chills with your third pick.
All right, so I did mine in order, I think. So I'm gonna go. Number 1, I actually really love that there's so many relatively recent characters on this list. As in general, this is awesome. So it's not just the regular row of people that you normally see in a Batman list.
We were trying.
For me, I'm going to go with another recent addition in Ghostmaker. One, because I was looking for something that was kind of completely different than what the Batman did with the Riddler. So I'm like, okay, well, if I'm looking at something completely different, who's a person that can come in and challenge Batman on a level that Riddler couldn't? And if you're talking, well, he's challenging him in his mind and his detective skills, Ghostmaker is someone that can challenge him in his just physical fighting prowess. He's as skilled as Batman from a fighting and tech and resources. He brings everything that Bruce Wayne typically brings to a fight and has the upper hand in. So then the only way for him to really get the upper hand is to lean into his experience in his detective skills, which we've seen that Reeves can do really well with Batman and leans into that anyway. This has look, even this early in Batman's career in the Pattinson world, Gotham's not great. Gotham has a lot of issues, and part of the storyline between these two is that they trained together for all these years, and they kind of had a falling out because they were going about the same thing. They wanted to make life better for people and protect, but in a very different way, and so they kind of diverged paths. And then Ghostmaker literally shows up to Gotham, and Gotham for the 90th time is like on fire, and like someone just like took out Arkham and all these things. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is terrible. I'm going to come in and fix this and do the job that you couldn't do. I find that really interesting in Matt Reeves' hands. Like, for him to take plus, if we saw that car chase, like, imagine what Reeves can do with someone who literally, these two could pull out swords and just be dueling, and that would look amazing.
Sick.
You know, they could be using gadgets, and the Batmobile comes in, and they're both on top. Like, there's so many. It opens up the canvas for Reeves in a really cool way, and it also makes sense because even in this world, Batman is feared, Batman is respected, but he's still like, there's so much corruption in the city. There's so many. You can make the argument that someone comes in and is like, I can do this better than you.
Yeah.
You know, so I love that ability here. And he's a relatively new character.
Based on what we were kind of tying it in, what we were talking about like last week with Chip Zdarsky's kind of, you know, Batman the Knight, like, I would love to see, if you brought in Ghostmaker, I would also love to see what Reeves would do, starting to peel back the backstory of how Batman trained to be Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's a fundamental part of that. And that would be interesting in Reeves' hands, too.
Absolutely.
See some of that stuff.
Man, can you imagine that design on the screen, on the big screen? Man,
Yeah,
that would
it'd be
look
sick.
so, just in the darkness and then the little blue light.
There's a man I believe can get shot in machine gun fire in a hallway and be okay.
Yes, I agree. So
All
that's my
right.
thing.
All right. So my number 2 pick, and again, I think I'm out of order here, but we're going to go with it. So my number 2 pick was the ventriloquist and Mr. Scarface.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matt Reeves, obviously, you know, there were a lot of blueprints for this first Batman movie. One of the biggest obvious influences was Seven, right? And, you know, the Riddler being John Doe of that movie. So Matt Reeves' Gotham is a kind of freaky place. There are killers and just freaky people lurking around every corner in this noir, kind of film noir world. And I don't think there's anybody who kind of nails and if you know anything about noir, having people who are, you know, eccentric looking or really freaky looking, nefarious types is a big staple of it. So that's why you get like Penguin, this version of Penguin and stuff. But the ventriloquist is such a weird character and so scary. And him and like Toyman are two DC characters that like can be so silly but also so scary when done right.
Toyman, they've just leaned completely into the creepy factor.
And it's like the ventriloquist is just, it's a good kind of thing because in Matt Reeves' world you saw these people kind of doing things with masks and voice and these other identities and these kind of ideas about how other identities can kind of swallow you up, and what better character to kind of bring that idea out than Mr. Scarface and the ventriloquist. And it's a good casting thing. Like, I feel like if you got somebody really funny who you wouldn't expect like to do this, like I would love Patton Oswalt to be like the ventriloquist.
Oh man,
somebody like really unexpected who would then be really creepy when you saw them in this kind of context. And you get somebody good to like voice the dummy. Like, it'd be cool if you got an Easter egg like Danny DeVito or something like.
Oh my gosh,
somebody really nuts to voice the dummy.
That's a great.
But and I wouldn't necessarily make, because this kind of reflected a thing I was going to say, but you know, I don't think Mr. Scarface can necessarily carry a whole movie. But this is the Batman, like we said, it's a whole universe, so you don't have to just pick one person and carry all the weight.
Yeah.
I would put, given what's happened in Gotham, Mr. Scarface would be one of any number of kind of secondary Batman characters who are just crazy killers, serial killers, Mr. Zaz, Mr. Professor Pig, like all these people.
Professor Pig.
I mean,
how is he not on the list?
But like, I mean, but Mr. Scarface is just kind of like the most, kind of like the one I would like the best. But I would assume part of the story of the Batman too would be Batman having to go into a Gotham that is now, again, even more ripe for some pretty dark stuff to be happening. Because nobody's checking, and starting to bust down killers like this, and Scarface would be a great one to kind of put in there. Because again, not live action movie, I don't see better opportunities for that. So
good.
Yeah.
I hope that happens. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm down. I honestly, I love all the villains. I feel like, honestly, Batman has my favorite villains ever.
It's hard to argue that. If we were to do a ranking of like best villains, it's between him and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other two that have that good a rogues gallery.
I love them.
And deep a bench.
X-Men's probably the only other one.
Oh gosh.
Okay, well, we're not talking about one person though. I would say like I agree, because if you're talking just like, if you're comparing it that way, how can you not pick X-Men?
No, but I mean, single character Spider-Man, Batman easily.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Okay, so my second pick is actually going to be Poison Ivy, and this is because we need some female representation. Let's go. And also, guys, I've seen her cartoony and goofy and like Uma's version, and then we obviously have Ivy from the animated Harley Quinn, which is a really cool version. I would love to see a very, very dark and creepy version of Poison Ivy, like on the big screen, and not so like funny and cheeky, but like scary. And I would love to see her and Catwoman interact. Oh my gosh, that would be so sick. Like, oh, that fight would be so fun. And yeah, I know that Poison Ivy is a very common one. Everybody knows Poison Ivy, but I feel like in this world, she could be so cool. So.
Yeah, but she hasn't had a lot of big screen love.
Yeah.
Like, she's had the one. Like, and it's so unique to the Joel Schumacher Batman stuff. You could
it's
really
cheeky and funny and like and sexy, but I would love to see like
semi-serious
dark.
one.
Yeah. Oh, dude, just a brilliant kind
would
of
be so. I mean,
herbologist who knows everything about like natural poisons and all kinds of
would
stuff.
be so fun. And we've seen
That'd be
her
really
in the books flex her power set, and even in the Arkham games, like you're seeing here.
Oh yeah, I love her.
Power set's immense. It can do so many things. It can wall off. I mean, she's walled off pieces of a city before, and like had that be her territory, like amongst it. You can work that in, and that's what actually I really love about Reeves is that he doesn't shy away from the comic bookness of the characters and stuff, but he still makes it feel like all.
Oh yeah, I mean, she could be growing something under Gotham. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. You could do creepy Cronenberg plant stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff.
Bruce says, "I want Poison Ivy from the Hush comic book run."
Oh yeah, I mean, controlling people. That's also a great one. Yeah, Matt, what'd you pick for number 2?
Okay, so I went. In my thinking, I went hardcore with like fighting and combat focused with Ghostmaker. So I need to then do something that is probably smacking Reeves' wheelhouse, and I'm going to do something that you could work with all the underground stuff, and that is Cheer, because this character is even more, probably the most recent addition, I believe. I think he was last year. So most recent addition to the Batman canon. I think the concept is really interesting only because this was in Batman Urban Legends. And this character essentially develops a drug that allows you to kind of see your life and see how things have worked out and essentially like kind of live your dreams to a degree. But the way he's pushing it, he's very Joker-like, but not so, like he's not crazy. He kind of can talk to you, and ironically, as we'll get to later, he works with Mr. Freeze in this particular thing because he's trying to get to the root of what would make Batman happy. And when he finally captures him, there's a really interesting issue. This was like a 6-part series within that. And there's a really interesting thing where you actually see the moment that would make Batman the most blissfully happy. And it's pretty violent, like what you see in that moment, because yes, he's like, the Bat family's healed, but the Bat family's healed is because he finally killed Joker. And he's sitting there above Joker, and he's like, I did it, and my family can heal. And it's just some really interesting concepts that you can explore there. And one of the things we didn't get to do much of in Batman was explore Bruce Wayne. And that element of Pattinson's Batman is still kind of underdeveloped. On purpose. I mean, that was a purposeful thing. He focused more on the other stuff. But I think this would give him a ripe, like, just a full runway to really explore that, really lean into. Now, obviously, you would have to make some changes because in Matt Reeves' world right now, the Bat family only really consists of like, hey, are they dating or not Catwoman? There's no Robin, there's no Nightwing and Batgirl and stuff. So maybe this would be something you could plant, like you're talking about Scarface. Put him in the world, have this drug be a thing and work it into your plot, and then have him become a villain, like a full-on villain later on. But it's more the concepts with this character, and the design is really striking. And you can make him more fun. You can kind of have that Joker fun without having to full-on go Joker. And it seems like Reeves wants to do a darker Joker. So let you do that, and you get your kind of lighthearted fun with this character. I think he would be a perfect fit for what Reeves does really well. So I think he would work. That's my second pick.
I think you're nuts. But I'm kidding. Cheer's a good one. Yeah. Here's a good one. I mean, why shouldn't Joker even have a Joker family? Like, you should get more variations on Joker. Why not? My top pick, just to wrap this all up, I went for the easy, low-hanging fruit of the Court of Owls.
Oh, yeah.
This is easy because Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson have both said that'd be awesome if we did the Court of Owls.
Yeah.
And it's an easy one to see them having probably already started to think about, because as we said, Gotham is in a pretty sad state at the end of the Batman. It's flooded, it's destroyed. And if there's somebody who's going to be really pissed about this, it's going to be the people who have literally built their power structure into the infrastructure and buildings of Gotham City. So what Riddler really did, in exposing, if you know anything about the Court of Owls, they're this kind of mystical themed, supernatural themed kind of cabal of powerful people in Gotham and rich and powerful families who, and across the world really, but based in Gotham, who literally built Gotham back in the old days and built themselves all kinds of secret layers and tunnels and all this stuff.
So cool.
And maintain order through using these undead assassins that they kind of mummify and resurrect, called Talons, who kill who needs to be killed and help steer society the way the court wants it to be. So you can imagine with that kind of premise, what Riddler did would, make
Set
these
it
people
off,
really
yeah.
mad. Him exposing and tearing down a power structure that, obviously the court would be backing for it to have lasted with Falcone and all that.
Yeah.
Somebody had to be behind that. Everybody answers to somebody. Falcone probably answered to these people. Riddler tore all that apart, exposed all that secret, and then flooded the actual town. So if you're the Court of Owls, he just screwed up everything for you.
Yeah.
And you need to get Gotham back under control. Or at the very least, as Batman's dealing with whatever he's dealing with, maybe Mr. Scarface out there or whoever else, he begins to get clues that there is something going on here. Like there is a larger hand at work.
Dude,
that's
that's
been
so
hiding
creepy
in
with the
Gotham.
kid.
Yeah.
Like the kid with
Yeah.
the mask.
Yeah.
Like I'm so creeped
And
out.
so, like-
they're like staring at me.
All the things about, wealth and privilege and all that stuff, again, this would affect Bruce Wayne as much as Batman. And it's stuff that was kind of brought up a little haphazardly in the Batman about, who are you? Where do you come from? Are you from a world of wealth and privilege? Do you know how to help this city and all that stuff? And yeah. And the original Court of Owls story made Batman go on a pretty psychedelic interior trip, so there's kind of elements of that. And even though Matt Reeves might not want to do the undead talent thing, just having scenes of secret ninja-like assassins who's
Yeah.
sticking around Gotham taking
I'm
people out
all
is freaky as
about
hell
this.
and right up his alley. And the great thing is
Yes.
you could get a bunch of actors who, just like Ethan Hawke and Moon Knight, don't have to do anything super villainish.
Mm-hmm.
They're just creepy in those owl masks.
They really are.
Conversation scenes of kind of throwing around their power just through words because they're rich aristocrats.
Right.
And so, that would be great. I'd love to see the Court of Owls. And they're a group that I also tried to do this thinking of people you could do in a larger the Batman universe. And Court of Owls is something you could do and build up to before you even got here.
Right.
Through the Penguin series, the Arkham series, kind of hints that there is this group controlling things before you actually got to the Batman too. So
That is awesome.
that's my top pick. Court of Owls, baby. Let's go.
All right, so my top pick, I will say, I see you, Bruce Wayne, in the chat. Deathstroke would be my number one for this hypothetical list. Did I not? I said
Yes,
that.
you
Yes,
did.
I,
you did. She did say
I
Deathstroke.
almost chose Deathstroke, and the only reason why I did not choose Deathstroke is because I am Janelle Wheeler, and I have
rep.
to say the
You
Joker.
gotta
I
rep.
have to. I'm not even allowed to pick someone else. So if you've been tuning in for a long time, you know that I am a huge Joker fan, and so pretty much it's the same idea, low-hanging fruit. Like they've already kind of set him up in this teaser thing that they released. And I really am intrigued in this version of, oh God, he creeps me out so bad.
Yeah, I
this
know.
footage, he's disgusting. Like this is a Joker I've never seen before. This is not a Jared Leto, oh, that's a sexy Joker. This is I'm petrified, out of my mind. I do not want to be in the same room with this person. He is completely out of control and have no idea where this is going. So I am so intrigued by this tiny little snippet that I want more. I really do. I really want to see where this is going. And I hope we get, even just like you said, multiple villains. I hope that we get more of this. Because,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Oh my God. Ugh.
It's so
Oh my
creepy.
God.
Mystery. I've
It
never
is
been
so creepy.
More creeped out by someone's hands.
yeah.
So disturbing.
You haven't been around long enough.
Just stop it.
All right, Matt, your top pick. Let's wrap this all
All right, this is
up.
the last one. Okay, so I don't subscribe, by the way, to the low hanging fruit because I think these are all really great picks.
Yeah.
But I had to go classic with my top
that.
pick, and it's Mr. Freeze.
There you go,
Mr.
everybody
Freeze.
in the chat. We
Yes.
had Mr.
I know.
Freeze. He was just a top pick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Freeze, man, is one of my favorite villains. And like to your point earlier, where we've seen a lot of that character, but we haven't seen a lot of that character in the movies. We've had one, and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was very specific, over the top feel. So Arkham is a perfect example of doing this character in a way that, yes, you have the high-tech suit there, and it's a great boss battle, but there's still a lot of really interesting, rich character stuff there, because this character, at his heart, is sympathetic. You understand. It's an easily to explain premise. He's trying to save his wife. So all the things he does are to that goal. And a lot of the comics and stuff like that, especially later on, Batman identifies with him in a way, and he actually tries to help him at several different points. He's kind of rooting for him, but he just goes about it in the wrong way sometimes. He gets mixed up in other people's plots. Matt Reeves has already established, like, you have all these plots going on, right? There's all these kind of factions trying to gain territory in the city and push their power. You could easily insert him into this and have someone just taking advantage of him. Hey, I can give you the resources to get your wife to recover, where she can actually be alive again and everything. You just need to do this for me. I need your tech. There's so many ways to automatically just push him into this world. And I'd love to see what Reeves does with the tech and everything, but it's the story at the root of it. I think it would just be really interesting. Plus, who doesn't love a ice-filled Gotham? That has been such a thing we've seen over the years, whether it's because it's taking place at Christmas time or Mr. Freeze is frozen half the city. It's just an iconic depiction of Gotham at this point, to be covered in ice and snow. That would be an amazing jump. So I think Mr. Freeze is a no-brainer. I hope he does it, because it's going to take someone with skill to not screw it up. So that is my pick.
All right, and so those are our top picks for the Batman 2 villain. We will be releasing a graphic that shows just our whole lineup on social media after this. So be sure to kind of follow us at Comic Book Nation on Twitter, so you can kind of get the results page and weigh in on your Batman 2 villain picks and all of that good stuff, and just to keep up with us in general. So at Comic Book Nation on Twitter. Let's move into comics. Matt, what do we got this week for our comics section?
Big comics. This was hard to actually nail down to just a couple, and you're going to see we ended up just we got to talk about that anyway. There's a lot of these in this week. So let's start with Justice League number 75, which is the issue that has all been building to. It is labeled The Death of the Justice League. It lives up to that name. By the way, spoilers incoming for all of these books we're about to talk about, especially this one, because it's kind of hard. It's not even a spoiler. It's hard to get around what we're going to talk about here. Death of the Justice League finally shows us how they go. It is at times as violent and other times not as violent as you're kind of expecting. It's very much a setup for Dark Crisis as well that's coming down. All this stuff is kind of converging at the same time. If you've been paying attention to DC Comics for a minute, all of these plot lines will converge. We have the Justice League Incarnate involved in this issue as well. And by the way, one of the things that we kind of talk about here is that it's not just the Justice League that dies. It's you actually learn about the death of all of these major figures in DC's line. And while you might have been reading some of that in Infinite Frontier, here it's confirmed that, Spectre's dead. These huge, larger than life characters are all dead. And then we also lose the Justice League Incarnate, which is such a bummer, because it feels like we just got them. There's so many interesting characters there. They're all gone.
Superman. We knew he was going first.
We knew ahead of time that there would be one character that survived, and that would kind of be the one to tell everybody else that, hey, the Justice League is dead.
Thanos is coming. Justice League.
I was hoping it would be Black Adam. Hey!
I was shocked.
It's Black Adam.
I couldn't believe it.
I knew he would survive.
Wow.
He's too wily to
if you've been reading Justice League over the past year, I would say Black Adam is a constant highlight, what they've been doing with him in that book, and just how he's paired with everybody. And also there's an amount of, when we talk to Joshua Williamson, there's an amount of distrust there with the other heroes who are like, okay, but you're Black Adam. Did you kill him? There's kind of really interesting threads to go forward here. But most of the issue is actually not the death. It's kind of this lead up to this big army. You see Darkseid and all these huge villains from DC's past brought back as pariah's army to kind of move forward and can reclaim our world. So all of that set up, it was pretty epic. We'd known about it. It was hyped. Did you think it met the hype? What did you think about the issue overall? Like, what do you feel?
I think that DC has just spun itself into like, I know we say we were giving out, DC needs to learn, we're fixing, DC saying it needs to lean into this multiverse thing. Like, they need to lean a little bit out of this multiverse thing in the comics. Because it feels like every year now we have to go back into the multiverse. There's another story. It's getting more and more complicated. I was reading this and like going back and having to like look at Infinite Frontier and be like, okay, wait, yeah, who's Pariah? Yeah, right. So like, there's just so much that's so confusing about this multiverse at this point. But the actual battle scene was really cool.
Yeah.
And really exciting. The artwork in this was gorgeous. And like, yeah, Black Adam escaping, using the Shazam thing to escape and get away from Pariah was great. And it is like Infinity War. It is very much Infinity War, but it was still entertaining. And it is a storyline I will want to follow. Yeah, because.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement. It was just cool to see. I mean, it was traumatic also. Like, the way that they showed like the skin being blown off of their faces and turning into skulls, like it was very, very intense. Like I was like, wait, is this real? Like, am I really watching this happen? Like, no way, this has to be like a flash forward, or like, this is fake. They're gonna fake us out. No, it's real. And it was alarming, but in a really good way. And the artwork was really cool, and the way that he depicted it was really, really, really cool.
Well, that was one of the things, too, that this book does do is Williamson is very much a fan of the crisis events. So if you're reading this and you've read all of the different crisis events, you will see a lot of little, not even Easter eggs, but just homages and weaving in some of those tales. Even Pariah is weaving in someone as kind of important as that. It's a side character in those things. And now to be brought in as kind of the main antagonist is really interesting. There's a lot of interesting concepts here. I agree with Kofi to an extent of, I don't even think you need to lean out of the multiverse thing. I think it's just, DC has a lot of books where you can just jump in, even like the Batman world. You can jump in at different points periodically and enjoy them for what they are, and then move with the story from there. Mega events in DC is very opposite. If you're not keeping up with, I would say at least 2 or 3 kind of important books in their whole architecture on a regular basis, it can be very just like, what is this? Like, what am I seeing? If you're not reading Wonder Woman and keeping up with like what's happened to her since Metal, if you're not keeping up with like the Incarnate group, because all of this stuff has been building in there as well, it's just a lot. And if you're not enamored in that universe, it can be very just like, I don't feel like I know what the half of is going on. I don't know, maybe they need to figure out that problem. But I love the multiverse stuff. So
well, luckily I was okay with everything going on, and I totally followed. I was like totally following everything, which is great too.
Yeah, no, agreed. So let's move into the next DC book. Ironically, it's Rogues #2, which is a completely different tone than Justice League 75. Rogues, we loved the first issue, and this one is just kind of more of this group of just older villains who are all at different walks of life at this point, and all just trying to, half of them, they just want the big score, but, you know, it's also like sometimes their powers don't quite work, they exhaust them at other times, they don't have the resources they once did, they're just trying to get to the big gold point in Gorilla City. But also, I love the Gorilla City part, because actually most of this issue takes place in Gorilla City, and it actually leans into like the politics and what's going on there, who's in charge. There's so much world building in this, and it's just really impressive. That was kind of what I was more taken away by.
No. I mean, I wasn't guessing. This one was just so weird compared to the first one.
Yeah.
Like, this one really opens the door to a much bigger story, where it was just kind of these low rent, like you said, blue collar ex-supervillains just trying to get a heist together. And then in this one, we're like in Gorilla City, and then all of a sudden, this story just jumps into like all the Gorilla City, like gangsters and detectives, and this whole other kind of weird film noir world of gorillas. And I was just like, I did not see that coming.
It was a lot.
Yeah, so this issue was very different than the first one, but the core of it is still working, which is the interaction between the rogues and this kind of version of them, and, you know, them trying to pull off this heist as this kind of ragtag crew, which still works in its core, but it was just such a, like, it was just such a jump from the first issue.
There's like a 25% of the issue dedication to just the things going on in Gorilla City.
Yeah.
You're like, okay,
Yeah, it was wild. But it was cool. I mean, I'm intrigued by it too, and it's its own thing, and I like it for what it is. It's a fun read, yeah.
I agree. And do you think this works? Because I feel like this is just made for bringing into a screen. I don't know if it's the big screen or the small screen. What works better for you?
I think they would, but I can tell you, if they ever adapt this, the first thing they're going to do is cut Gorilla City into something else.
Oh, for sure. Or keep
it'll be
it
Central
as
City. It'll just be
or
like,
something. Even if they keep Gorilla City, they would keep it as a concept and like an endpoint. Yeah. But I don't think you would see all this stuff leaning into Grodd, leaning into all that.
It would be them just going from point A to point B.
Right.
Yeah. Or just like sneaking into Grodd's base or something. You got a budget for one gorilla.
Yeah, I think HBO Max would be a perfect home for
this
that.
would be, but this as a character study.
Yeah,
this is a character study as just them trying to pull this heist and just doing that. Like, it would be great. Like,
pulling like any heist, Rogues would be really, really cool on HBO. Especially if they can be like language and violence and like really play up how like ragtag they are. Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, agreed. Poll winner time. Thank you guys for voting as always. We have the Amazing Spider-Man #1. And I gotta say,
we tried to get.
We did. I voted too, by the way.
I voted.
I voted for Batman.
My Twitch community to vote. We were trying.
I am unashamed.
You guys
I'm gonna
love
vote.
Spider-Man.
Voted for Spider-Man #1. This is coming off of the kind of multi-creator thing. Now it's Zeb Wells taking the reins, and we also have, and I know I'm gonna get grief from Jim. Jim's in the chat right now, waiting for me to say anything negative about John Romita Jr.'s artwork. I will get to that in a second. We're kind of launching a brand new jumping on point, and there's a lot of really interesting things in here. We just came off of a thing where I felt like we spent a lot of time getting Peter back. We were going through the Ben Reilly stuff, we were going to the Beyond thing, we were kind of really exploring Peter's family, and for once, like, he actually had people that were supporting him and everything, but he was recovering, right? And he's typically the one fighting for other people. So it was really interesting change of pace, but you still had this group of people that loved him, and he was okay. Peter was okay. And now we jump into a thing where, like, no one likes Peter. Peter's, like, dropped the ball, like, his friendships.
Yeah, it is an interesting take.
MJ has kids with someone else, evidently. They're calling her mommy. The villain stuff is actually really interesting. I love all the Tombstone things that are going on.
Yeah, somehow Tombstone's interesting in this.
Yeah.
It was just a lot. So, but I came off so conflicted about this. Also, no, I am not. I used to be a huge John Romita Jr. fan, and then after a certain amount of time, I don't know. There's just something about his artwork. This just doesn't click with me these days.
The man gave me very as a child in the 90s, the man gave me very unrealistic expectation for female cheekbones. But luckily I met those expectations and, 20 plus years since.
Well done. Well done. Way to bring that one home.
And I let her know that, every year she needs to send like, Harry and David's baskets and one Mr. John Romita Jr. just so that he can...
send some pairs?
Yeah. So he can just send some pairs. Because, the way he draws body, it's like Rob Liefeld we joke about with legs, but Romita with the cheekbones and the faces. The blocky art, it's a signature, but, I don't know.
I couldn't stand the art.
Wow, coming in hot, Janelle Wheeler.
It was so difficult for me to follow the story because I was so distracted by the art.
Why do you hate Lego people? Why do you guys hate Lego people?
It was just the faces. I was like, is that a mask on that person's face?
Oh, my. Yeah. Wow.
I'm serious.
Look, I know. Where's the comment? Is the
opinions of Janelle Wheeler are not those of Comic Book Nation, Comicbook.com,
spoiled with
CB, Paramount, or its affiliates. Thank you. No, it's okay.
So
he hasn't. I'm amazed he hasn't commented yet. I just don't. If the art style is not for me. Yeah, he must be distracted.
It was distracting. Honestly, the book is actually probably better, and the story's probably better. But I was distracted by some of the artwork, and that is just the truth because I couldn't focus. I was more focusing on that than the story.
Matt, who do you got? John Romita Jr. or Chris Bacalo?
Oh, dude, Bacalo all the
You're
way.
crazy.
He's one of my favorite artists.
Crazy.
What are you talking about?
You are crazy.
Chris Chris Bachalo is a fantastic artist, and his Spider-Man is stellar.
Just this one.
I just love how he can make anything a Where's Waldo, you know? Like, just a anything a Where's Waldo. Let's just sift through this picture and find what we need to find. We're getting way off topic. Let's keep moving.
All right, so let's
talk about Spider-Man. All right. I did not care for it. I don't know what is going on. Spider-Man seems to be thriving everywhere except in Marvel Comics as Peter Parker. Like, this was not an exciting relaunch for me. I was just like, okay, like, it's kind of familiar status quo Peter, except now he's more of a douche and people are in weird situations. Like, I feel like Spider-Man's just fringe now. Like, every season we just take the same people, but we just keep rearranging reality into something different.
He's just not very likable right now.
And it's just not interesting. There's nothing happening. I don't care why MJ has kids. Like, I'm tired of Peter and MJ. Give Peter Parker somebody new to, like, get into.
Whoa.
Like, enough with it. It didn't start as MJ. It started as Gwen.
I know, but, like, that's one of the things I love, but they keep screwing with it and just let it be. Just let them be happy. Good lads, that's so hard.
Like, the whole dynamic with him and Aunt May, him and MJ, having Doc Ock just locked in a wheel, like, I mean, this was just all, none of it's interesting.
Someone's playing Wheel of Fortune.
None of it's interesting. It's like, somebody's got to really come up with a fresh way to really give Spider-Man, like, a fresh, exciting... I would love Spider-Man to do what it did and go back to... Because Spider-Man used to be a big mystery comic, like... A lot of storylines were mysteries. We didn't find out who Green Goblin was for, like, ever. Like, and it was a huge mystery.
Yeah, but they kind of did that with Kindred and all that, and it just didn't go
those are stupid mysteries that still try to do nostalgia.
We want good mysteries.
Like, something new, like a new mystery for Spider-Man and a new status quo that is, like, kind of challenging and has mystery and stuff like that. Like, please. I might just have to write this.
So here's the thing.
You should talk about Star Wars.
I was going to say, that's a perfect segue to Star Wars.
Star Wars, Why don't you take it away? This week, just getting into mentions because we're going to get out of here soon. But Star Wars Crimson Reign's next issue is out. And the third issue was kind of a weird backstory about this, chronicler who was looking in on the history of things. But this one gave us some pay dirt. It was the Knights of Ren versus Darth Vader, and it was a heist. The Knights of Ren pull a heist at Castle Vader on Mustafar. And this was a kind of an unknown chapter that's really cool for anybody who liked the sequel trilogy and, loves the original trilogy. Seeing Ren and Vader kind of face off was really interesting. And it was done in a way that's interesting setup for what happens later with Kylo Ren, right?
Yeah.
And and that whole legacy. So Star Wars, again, is... The comics are going back and improving on that trash sequel trilogy movie run and just like helping to fill in a lot of this gap.
How honest we're being today.
So much spice.
So much peppery. So Crimson Reign and Kira continues to be a very intriguing figure. I'm getting kind of impatient. I want to see how they're setting this up in Crimson Reign and Kira for the larger franchise. But this comic is good, and check this out because this issue is, again, just Vader versus the Knights of Ren. What's more to say?
Comics have been killing it in the Star Wars universe, man. So last book, because yes, it lost the vote. However, dang it, I wanted to talk about
Matt has his own insurrection to get it here.
This book is too good.
I need to read this.
It's so good. Okay, Batman Beyond the White Knight, #2. We talked about the first issue a little bit briefly, but my word. Okay, so at the end of the last issue, they had a big hook, and I was a little trepidatious because the hook was, hey, Jack/Joker might still be alive because older Bruce Wayne broke out of prison and finds and sees him in front of him, right? So you're like, okay, please don't do what like Arkham Knight did and take what could be a promising thing and then just kind of let it fizzle out and not really go anywhere with it. So what I love here is that right off the bat, first 3 pages, they establish exactly what he is, and it's very practical. Like he literally before while they were going back and forth, he implanted a little device. He got a little device and implanted it in Bruce's head. And it's just been like sitting there collecting data. So essentially now he's kind of like Bruce's Cortana. He essentially, because Bruce is going very low grade, he can't do tech because in this new Gotham, they can pick up tech. They have all these sensors and they're monitoring things because it's kind of become an authoritarian state, even though everybody's like, hey, we're happy. There's no crime, but it's kind of, they don't have any freedom, right? So
cool.
Now Joker is kind of his ability to be able to tap in and go, he analyzes things for him. At one point, he ends up, like this cover suggests, he ends up fighting Dick Grayson, who is now the head of the agency trying to hunt Bruce, right? And Jack is like reading him for weaknesses and help. But Bruce hates this idea. Bruce hates that he's in his head. He hates this. So there's this fun back and forth between them. But there is a scene that after Bruce absolutely pwns Grayson. By the way, been in prison for 10 years, has no tech, and he still like just owns Grayson at one point, and then ties him up. And then Barbara Gordon, who's now the commissioner of the very like, oh, we don't care about the GCPD anymore because we have this fancy new GTO, comes and finds him, and she's like, boy, this must just piss you off. Like her expression and everything as she comes up is so good. And while they're older, the shadows, Sean Murphy does this thing where he actually draws them as their characters in superhero form in the shadows. So every time you see them, but you also in the shadows see like Batgirl, or you see Nightwing, or you see Batman. It's a really cool artistic thing.
Cool.
And then when you get to the end of this issue, and there's this like huge thing of he finally reunites with Harley Quinn, and he's there and he finds a new suit and everything that he left behind. And then it turns out they're married. And that's how it ends. She's like, my husband, and Jack's here. Like, and he goes, excuse me, what? And that's how like the issue ends.
Wow.
There's just so much interesting stuff they're doing in this world. If you are not reading this world, just period, go back and check out the trades. There's 3 different trades if you include the Harley Quinn series, which was also excellent. Just go read this. This is so good. This is so fun.
Okay, there you go. Detailed stumping from Matt. Obviously the one he really wanted to talk about.
Anti-Spider-Man.
So there you go, Beyond the White Knight. That'll do it for this episode of Comic Book Nation. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we are live every Friday on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube for our live stream show. If you missed it, that's okay. You can replay it immediately afterward on any of those platforms. If you just want to get into the podcast of it all, we are on all your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So be sure to subscribe to Comic Book Nation on all of those platforms and follow us at Twitter, at Comic Book Nation. Or if you want to check us out individually, I am at Kofi Outlaw.
I am at Matt IDLRCB.
And I'm at Janelle Wheeler.
As always, we want to thank you guys and have a good week. Next week, it'll be time for Multiverse of Madness and the future of the MCU. Be sure to be here for that and everything else that could happen leading up to that. See you guys later. Peace. Comic Book Nation, we're out.
Bye, guys.